Yo, yo, it's your boy Dre. This is the Dre B. Rambo Show. Thank you for tuning in. Today, we're going to be talking about knowing who you are as a man, living by a code. This is actually something I've been thinking about a lot the last week or two. Um, I started writing a whole bunch of stuff down that I normally don't do because I realized it's actually not that easy to know, you know, what your code is, who you are, what you live by, what you believe in. How often do you write those things down and like, this is what I believe and this is who I want to be as a man, things like that. But before we get into that, we have coming tomorrow a very special guest, my boy, the meerkat, Rio Renderos, who's coming on the show. He just came off of a fight a couple of months back. I'm going to play that for you in a second. Some highlight of his fight. And I'm really excited about it because real cool dude, has done has done about 4 fights now. He's preparing to go pro. Super excited for this guy because he has a lot of talent. And don't let me talk about it. Let me show you guys what this guy manhandled on his last fight. He handled. Let's see if I can play this. Then he's gonna kick this guy over and just mounts him. Boom, pushes an elbow and then just starts wailing on him. I like the way the ref gives him an opportunity to just wail on this dude. Look at, boom, he's ready, man. Animal. Heck yeah. Anyway, so I got this guy coming in coming tomorrow to be on the show. He's gonna talk a little bit about his fight. And I'm super excited for that. So big thanks to Rio coming on the show. This was in Camp Pendleton against Justin Lee. This is back March 21st, so it's not that long ago. Anyhow, so I did want to talk about, because I'm on this journey right now, me personally, to get this podcast off the ground, start a business, and then improve on another business. And, I ask myself, what is it that I want? What kind of man am I? For example, what do I place above all else? What's the most important thing to me? And I was troubled by the fact that, I was sitting at work in my office. I had some free time and I was like, what do I value? I know I'm a Christian and I value my relationship with Jesus, but what are my values? Like, if I have values, I'm sure that they should first be in line with what God has for us, in the Bible, and but I'm trying to dig deeper than that. I'm talking about my beliefs and values. Like, I don't actually have to like be willing to like die for these things literally, but figuratively, what principles do I want to live by? And often the first question I ask is, what kind of man do I want to be? And I think that I'm the kind of man who wants to be, successful, in different areas, in different regards, not just successful, with money, but with family, marriage, kids, relationships in general, my buddies. And obviously, I also want to be financially successful. And whatever that means to me, it's going to be different for everybody what people determine what success is, what people feel is success. And financial success, if I was talking about financial success, for me, financial success is having 10 rental properties, or maybe not even a specific number, but enough rental properties where there's enough residual income to be able for me to purchase my dream home with enough income coming in that the income from my rental properties could pay the mortgage and the taxes and the insurance for my dream home in perpetuity, where I don't even have to, do anything anymore. Not necessarily not work. I mean, you own rental properties, you gotta, maintain the properties, and you gotta rent and, kick people out and, manage the money and all that stuff. Of course, you're still gonna work. But I have a system set up where I'm not wondering where the hell I'm gonna get the money for my mortgage payment. I'm not worried about having to go to work and work for some other guy and focus on his business and building his dream for his life, which is what I do right now, in addition to my own businesses. But for me, that would be success, financial success anyway, not success in other areas of my life, which are also important. And there has to be some give and take when it comes to, running a business or going after something, and, wife and kids, or, mom and dad, or, if it's just kids for you or whatever it is. But if we're talking about getting to the next level in your journey as a entrepreneur or as a fighter or whatever it is, that is going to take up a lot of your time. It's going to be something that, if you want to get to a certain level, you're going to have to devote a certain amount of time and energy to your craft, whatever it is. For some people, it's, becoming a doctor or a lawyer, maybe it's an electrician or an engineer or a business, whatever it is. But if you wanted to be an entrepreneur, which is what I like entrepreneurship. I think that's better than working for someone else and climbing the corporate ladder, which is kind of what I've been doing. I've been working at a law firm, and I've moved up the ladder over the years. And recently I just asked for a raise, and they gave me a $5 an hour raise, which is pretty cool, but still not enough. It's good money, but it's not like how they say FU money. It's good money. It's the kind of money that'll entice you to like give up your dreams for entrepreneurship, but not for me. I gotta have entrepreneurship. But this is more of who I am. It's who I am as a person. Like, I delved into all these different businesses and a podcast, and because I don't want to be the guy who just does a 9 to 5, comes home and then watches TV. I don't want to be that dude. And if that resonates with you, if you're somebody watching this podcast and you're like, yeah, I feel the same way, well, subscribe, watch the show, because I know 100%, no doubt, I'm going from zero to $25,000 a month. $0 to $25,000 a month. That's the expectation I've set for myself. And it's not just a $25,000 a month. It's like, what kind of dream home am I gonna have, for example? And that's getting more into goal setting and stuff. Like, am I gonna have a pool? Am I gonna have a double driveway? Am I gonna, that's getting into like visualization type stuff. And that's not what I'm talking about today. Today, I'm talking about who I am as a person. and what do I value? And more specifically, in the financial aspect, what is it that I expect of myself moving forward from here on out? And so if I were to take this a step further and ask, you know, what type of person do I want to be morally as I go through this journey of becoming a successful entrepreneur? Um, I want to be the kind of guy who pays his bills on time, things like that. The type of guy who keeps his promises, not just to family, but, to the business people that I'm out there talking to my clients. If somebody calls a legal doc guy and they need a child custody modification, recently I did a child support modification, and this guy paid me good money. Actually, I gave him a really good discount. It was very, very low. I probably billed him for 1/3 of what I could have billed him for. And to me, it didn't matter that I had I undercharged him. I mean, I knew I was undercharging him, but because he was a husband of a family friend or whatever. So I gave him a little discount. But I knew that my work had to be good. I had to perform, even though he had paid less, I still went above and beyond to make sure that his paperwork and his exhibits and his declaration, everything was just put together nicely. It looked like a professional lawyer did it. And that's the kind of guy I want to be. I want to be the kind of guy in business who when I make a promise to a client, I keep that promise. Someone gives me money, that I provide the service. I've worked in a lot of law firms, and let me tell you, not all lawyers have that attitude. More often than not, clients get ignored. The lawyers will fall behind, and then the clients end up, calling like, "Hey, what's going on with my case? What's going on with my case? Like, why hasn't anybody contacted me?" Communication is one of those things that lawyers fail to do when it comes to their clients. Their clients just get left hanging, not knowing anything that's going on. Matter of fact, in the bar exam, they test communication quite a bit. And for me, and I hope that people would agree, but I have a reputation for being a good communicator. When I have a client and I haven't finished their work, I don't ignore them and be like, "Hey," and because I'm afraid, I just call them and say, "Hey, running a little behind. I had to do some research, or I had to do this, or I have another client." Or one time I even told a client, "Hey man, this guy, honestly, I gave you yours pretty, I'm waiting. I gave you a pretty steep discount, and this other person paid me full price. This guy paid me $2,500, and I kind of had to put your case to the side for a day. But don't worry, I'll get back to you tomorrow." And I found that 100% of the time, that if I just communicate with the client, they're cool. They're not stressing. I want to have that reputation or I want to make a client feel like, "Oh man, it's my lawyer calling again," or it's the paralegal. I'm not a paralegal. I'm a law clerk, but um, where they're just like, my lawyer's calling again. I'm gonna, just put that to voicemail. Whatever it is, he's on top of it. As opposed to being that guy. "Why doesn't my lawyer ever call me?" Like, about time this mother effer called me. I've been waiting for him to call me for weeks, and here he is. Now he's finally calling me. Don't want to be that guy, right? Um, so yeah, I want to be the kind of guy who keeps his promises, not just in business, but to my wife or kids or, you know, to whoever, my friends. If I tell my friends I'm going to do something, or if my buddy asked me to move a couch, which this has happened, and actually I remember my friend complimented me, or didn't compliment, but he thanked me for not forgetting, because he had asked me to help him move something weeks in advance. He asked me about it, but he never brought it up again. And I remembered the date though, because I wrote it down. And when the date came, the day or two before, I said, "Hey man, we still doing that?" And he was like, "Dang, bro." He was happy that I remembered. I didn't make a promise and then just forget. Like, "Oh man, I forgot. I'm so sorry." That kind of sucks when people do that kind of thing. But yeah, keeping promises. Um, I want to be the kind of guy who, cares about his health, not just his physical health, but his mental health. Go to church regularly, practice what I preach, those types of things. These are the types of things I'm talking about when it's like live by a code. Like, know who you are, what you care about, what you value, and write it down. You know, I value going to church. I value having a relationship with Jesus, for example. I value, like I said earlier, keeping my promises. The kind of man who takes care of his family, or the type of man who takes care of his children. Um, all those things are important. They matter, right? If you have, it's very difficult to have your business life in order if your personal lives and relationships are all out of whack. And I know that through experience, just how much when your relationships are not tight, and or if you have a bad reputation with your own family, how much that could affect you as it rolls over into business. Um, and I don't mean to say that like I'm this business guru. I'm not. I'm just a guy who's failed a lot in business, a lot. But I'm also the kind of guy who keeps trying, who keeps going out there and trying to make it happen. And I really think that I'm really on the cusp of something here, where this is going to be the first time my businesses take off. I feel it, and I'm going to get into more of feelings. The way you see yourself in a episode for the end of this week. But for now, I just want to stay on topic of your code as a man. Like, what kind of code you have. Um, so I think about, what kind of guy do I want to be in business, you know? And as I said earlier, I want to be the type of dude that goes from making zero in his business. Cause right now with the the mobile detailing business, I've made $0, but I've invested heavily. I got the steamer I got all kinds of equipment. I just bought and used for the first time today a pressure washer. I got the air compressor so I can blow out things that are in tight spaces. I got a steamer, and I just bought another steamer extractor today, in addition to the one I already have, which is a more powerful hot water extractor. Right, the other one's a steam extractor. The other one I have here is the first one I bought is a hot water extractor. So I'm heavily invested in this whole thing. I feel confident about it. I'm invested with you know a software company that is working with me to create like a client management software and a website and the domains and all this other BS that I pay a lot of money for actually every month. Or that I will be paying every month. I've already paid one month, which was quite substantial, and I'll be paying that every single month. But if they can do half of what they say they're going to do, which is get me to $10,000 per month within 3 months, then it's well worth its investment. It would be chump change compared. If I'm making 10 grand a month, doing this on the side as a side hustle, I'm not sweating a few $100 a month, right? But I've decided that I'm going to go from zero to 25,000 per month. And I'm that might take a couple of years. Maybe it takes 1 year. But that's the type of dude I want to be, right? Um, uh, but obviously, the guy who makes $25,000 a month, I ask myself, what kind of guy do I have to become in order to make $25,000 a month, or even $10,000 a month? Like, what kind of guy do I have to become? Because I know the guy looking into the camera right now, he's not that. That's not the guy. This is not the guy who makes $10,000 a month in his side hustles. So it means that there's a lot of changes that I myself would have to make. And there's plenty of change that has to occur. Most doubt about it. One thing that I probably have to become is fearless. I can't care about what people think. I gotta I gotta put myself out there. I gotta be willing to go out and talk to people and network, go to like business functions, let people know, hey, I have this legal document preparation company called Legal Doc Guy. Hey, I have an automobile detailing business also, uh, where we mobile detail cars on the side. I got this business, and I'm looking for clients, or I'm, you know, networking. People, if they don't know you exist, then how are you going to generate business? And clearly, I don't know everything. I don't know anything about marketing. Uh, but that's something that brings us to my next point, which is, as talking about the topic of what kind of man do I have to become, I got to become the kind of guy who has to learn new skills, have to learn new things, such as marketing and sales. I got to like learn this stuff. Um, and I would probably have to start planning out my days. You know, I have to start writing things down, which I've already started doing. But but that's the kind of guy I have to become the kind of guy who writes everything down, plans everything down. You know what I used to do, which I stopped doing, is that I would have a book for different things. I would have one book to write in for like work. I'd have another one to write in for the gym. I'd have another book like to write in like my daily schedule for my family or whatever. And then, I just decided, or I have another book for like my thoughts and just like how I'm feeling that day or whatever. And I thought, that's ridiculous. So I just incorporated it all into one book. So as I go through my book, it could be one page could be about my gym workout, and then the next page could be about my plans for the next day, or the next page could be about like how I felt that day, or what I something, or like a quote. Sometimes I come up with ideas, or just ideas, whatever it is. I find that it's easier just to put it all into one book and just let it become this living, breathing document that you have. I put phone numbers in there. I put all kinds of personal information in there that I might normally have put somewhere else, but I'll just put it in that one book. That was a change that I had to make for myself. Another change that I would have to make, which I've started on, is taking care of my body, being physically fit. I mean, you don't just get like this, without working out. You know what I'm saying? That's a joke, by the way. Somebody had told me once, people don't know that you're joking. Like, you'll make comments like, boom, look at this, see how strong I am and stuff. And like, people are like, obviously you're not. I just figured people would know, obviously I'm not all chiseled and stuff. But having a positive mental attitude, that's one thing I'm trying to change. I was told many times, negative self-talk is bad for you. Don't talk negatively about yourself. That's another change. I think that's important in business, because if you're somebody who doesn't have much success in business, maybe you're like me and you've had lots of businesses and they've all failed. I've had like 10 businesses, things that I've done. I've done multi-level marketing, all this stuff, and failed at all of it miserably. But I learned stuff along the way from all these things. And that's why I recognize certain things, which I'm going to talk about in a sec. But other things I'd probably have to do is, start waking up earlier. I wake up pretty early right now. I wake up at like 5:30, 6 o'clock. But I was waking up at 4 before last year. I could probably wake up at 4. I know I could. Actually, I get up at 4 every day to go take a piss, but then I just go right back to sleep. But imagine if I, you know, got up a little earlier, I could get something more done. The only problem is I can never get to bed early because I'm always out and about, just because the way my work schedule is set up. By the time I get to my second job, and then by the time I get home, wind down, whatever, and then do the podcast, it's just late. So there's just no way I can get to bed early. So so I always end up going to bed late, and then I wake up early, like at 5:30, 6 o'clock. I usually go to bed around 11, 11:30 at night. and then I'm up starting a whole new day at 5:30 in the morning, which most people might say is pretty good. But honestly, I think I already feel like I'm late in the day when I wake up at 5:30. But that's something that I would need to change. And of course, I already mentioned that I need to would have to learn new skills. And then another important thing that I haven't talked about is cutting out, time wasting behavior. Things like scrolling on YouTube or Instagram all day, things like that. Which I'm, I'll admit, I do scroll through YouTube a lot. Generally, when I'm driving to work, and when I'm driving to work. So lately, this last week, I decided that I was going to stop watching any type of negative videos, any type of videos that just don't add value. If I was going to watch a video, I'm going to watch something that is educational in my drive. And sometimes I try to just sit in my car and just think without any distractions, just that time alone. And I'd like to say, I spend that time alone with God and stuff like that. And I do talk to God throughout the day, just naturally. Uh, and when I say naturally, I just mean like I can't help it. I think probably everybody, has moments where they're talking to God, or at least it seems that way. But, just to sit in silence and just think and just let ideas come to you and just have thoughts as opposed to just being programmed. And, that's not like an original idea for me. People have told me, you know, stop looking, like my wife, for example, telling, stop wasting your time with that YouTube or Instagram, type stuff. Cause it's low value, and bombarding your brain all the time with programming is unhealthy for lots of reasons. This is not an episode on, the, the bad stuff from watching YouTube all day, but I think it's clear that, it's bad for you. It's not good for your brain. Other things, like what other types of things do I need to change? Like, how about networking? Think about it. Like, if you're not networking, all the opportunities that you're missing. Learning to talk to people is a skill that has to be developed. And lots of times I'm unwilling to talk to people. I don't like talking to people all the time. I do like people. I just don't like talking to people all the time. But that's definitely something that I would have to work on. If I want to have a $25,000 a month business, if I want to have repeat customers, like, they're going to have to like you, or at least respect you. They're going to keep spending their money with you. Like, I can't just be like, give me your money, I'm going to clean your car. It's not really like that in business. I don't think. Like, in business, it's all about, even if it's just getting a job, it's like who you know. Like, when people interview at our firm for a job, and I'm thinking, I remember I was hearing some questions that were being asked, like, who cares about all that? All I want to know is, do I want to spend 8 hours a day with you? Like, yes, most people are competent. When you come in the door and you apply for the job, there's a good chance you can do the job. And those are like one or two questions. Most of the time you can answer that with the resume. Oh yeah, look at that. They worked at this firm. They did this. They had this experience, and yeah, they were there for 2 years. Okay, great. Let's bring them in. Now at that point, I already know you're qualified. I just want to know: do I want to spend, you know, 8 hours a day with your ass, hanging out with you? Like, are we gonna click and get along? Are we gonna have conflicts? And because those happen in a company, especially with people when they don't have good management, where management just, hires based on other criteria. I don't want to get into all that, but you know how sometimes people get jobs that they're not qualified for, right? But I'm not gonna go there. But that's the thing, networking and being able to communicate. It's a skill that if I want to be the kind of guy who is making big money, $10,000 a month, $20,000 a month, I better learn to talk to people, and I better learn sales. And part of sales is being able to connect with people and being able to show value and learning how to talk and communicate. Those are skills that I would have to learn and need to develop. So there's that. Um, I got to be the kind of guy who spends less money. Can't just be squandering my money on $5 Starbucks coffees every day, which I've done. That's just a waste of money. I mean, think about that, man. I was spending it got so bad that I was buying two venti cafe mistos with 2 pumps of hazelnut, and sometimes I would even go a step further and get a shot of espresso. And you're talking like that's a $6 drink right there, right? The regular way is $5 drink. And if I was doing that 2 times a day, that's $10 a day. That's 50. That's $50 a week driving to and from work getting coffee. That's crazy. And that's not smart because that's money that could be better used doing other things, Um, anyway, but you could all like other things such as investing. You could be investing your money. That $50 of coffee every week can be going into crypto. It could be going into a interest bearing account. And it could be, I have a savings account through Discover that earns 4%. I could have threw that $50 in there and started earning 4% on it, which is not a lot of money, but it's better than the bank where you're only earning less than 1%. Those types of things. And that's another thing that I need to learn is financial education. I don't have it, but I know that it's out there, and I know that that's something that I better learn, like how to use QuickBooks, learn how to use tools. Like there's so much to running a business and as you go. But the thing is, you don't want to be the kind of guy who is waiting for everything to be perfect. It'll never be perfect. Like I said, I bought all this stuff and I'm not waiting for perfect. I'm not waiting for, I got to have a bunch of clients. I'm not waiting for none of that. However, I guess I'll just talk about this is that you gotta be able to recognize when you've hit a certain like plateau when you're starting off in a business. Let me put it this way. When you're flying an airplane, you're I'm not the right guy to, you know, um, I'm not a pilot, but if I was flying an airplane, I know that I at least know that you have to gain a certain amount of speed before you hit, like, I guess what's called the point of no return. And you got to hit enough speed so that way when you hit that, you're taking off, like you're gone, right? Because if you don't pick up enough speed, you're just going to go right into the lake or you're just going to crash. And what I've realized from having so many businesses that have failed is that I've done the part of being excited, investing all the money and getting all this crap. It's not crap, it's very expensive equipment, but getting all this stuff. But it doesn't mean dick if you don't have customers, clients, if you don't have that. And so I've hit this point where I know I recognize it. I recognize this, where I'm like, hey, you got to start marketing and generating income for this business because you've already spent a lot of money. You're heavily invested and it's not all paid for. I took out a loan for half of it. I took out a $2,000 loan, but I'm invested like $4,000. And I took out a $2,000 loan because it was easy. And I got to pay that shit back before 3 months if I want to pay it back with no interest. I pay $200 every time I get paid. But if I don't pay within the 3-month period, I'm gonna end up incurring double. I'm gonna end up paying double for all this stuff. It's loan sharking basically. These companies are real scumbags. I didn't realize just how bad it was until after I had already made the purchase. I was like, holy shit. Like these guys are screwing me. Right. So, you got to be able to recognize those patterns. And since I do recognize it, I then have to I have to change another thing about myself, which I was talking about earlier, which is writing down plans to get yourself through the troubles and the things that happen, the roadblocks, all that stuff. Now I'm getting into the part where now I'm having to deal with issues that pop up in the business. I've had a day, so I started learning how to use all this equipment on my own car, and And I had to start having issues with one of the machines right away. The hot water extractor wasn't spraying the hot water that I was supposed to. And I took it to the shop and not, where I bought it. And they're like, it's out of our hands. We don't really know. Like, you got to take it to this special place. And I'm like, fuck, like, what, man, screw these guys. And so what I did was I decided to take it in my own hands and I took it apart and I cleared the lines and I fixed it, right? I fixed it and now it works. It's not my favorite machine. That's why I bought the second steamer extractor to see if maybe that one works a little better. And this is like a whole new skill. Auto detailing is a skill. It's something you have to practice. And from what the guys I've talked to already, they say, it just takes a few cars and then you're going to be like a pro. Right. And I believe it. I mean, I'm already learning how to use a lot of this stuff. So there's a lot of change that has to come if you want to take your business from, like I said, I'm not at 25,000 and I'm not talking from experience here. But my theory is that, or I just think it seems logical, it rings true, that there's a lot you have to change about yourself. There's a lot that I have to change about me if I'm going to go from earning 0 in this business to earning 25K a month in this business. I know that's a little ambitious. I think I'm going to aim for the stars and land on the moon at 10,000 a month and then just build from there. Because I've hit other problems too. Because I'm like, all right, well, I could only do the weekends because I got my day job, which I don't want to quit. It's good money. I'm taking the bar, so I might just end up being a personal injury lawyer soon. And why would I want to quit this job? But also, it's not enough money that I'm going to be able to purchase a house within a year, So how do I earn more money? So that's why I did this whole thing. And I'm only going to be able to do the weekends. So I had to figure out, how do I get myself an employee who can operate my business during the week, Monday through Friday, where I can manage my employees from the office in LA. And I've been thinking about this, and I'm just like, you know what, man, I got to get 2 vans. I'm going to start off with one employee. First I got to get a van and rig it up so that way he can drive around and I'm going to do all the marketing and they're going to be my clients and I'll just tell him where to go and he'd go there and clean the car. I'd pay him a certain percentage. I probably talked about this already, but these are in order for me to do that, I've never had an employee in my life. I've never cut a paycheck before and paid taxes on that. That's something I'm going to have to learn to do. And that's I think to myself, what kind of guy am I going to have to be where I can now have employees and pay them on time and have company Christmas parties and all this type of stuff? That requires change on my part. I got to become a certain type of dude to be able to do that. And it's possible. I have to believe that I can do that. And I'm going to have an episode on, mindset that I've been working on that has helped me get this far, which isn't very far. But, there's a certain thing that you got to change about the way you feel about yourself and the way you think about yourself and the way you see yourself. If you think you're going to fail, you're going to fail. If you think you can hit the ball over the fence, then you can hit the ball over the fence. One of my favorite quotes by Henry Ford is that whether you think you can or think you can't, either way you are correct. I believe in that. You gotta have belief in yourself. But we'll get into that another time. But yeah, I think about, what am I gonna have to sacrifice? Obviously, you don't want to sacrifice your family. I'm on this road to become, an entrepreneur who, I was already an entrepreneur in a sense. Legal doc guy, very small business, very small. I probably generate 1,000 or less a month. I usually generate about 1 or 2 clients a month, maybe $1,000 or $2,000. I've had months where I made 5,000. But that's due to me, not marketing, not making my commercials like I do. I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen my commercials. I think a couple of them are pretty funny or good, Um, I had to learn how to edit and all these skills and actually get the camera and the tripod and film the thing. And it's a lot of work. The person on the other end is only seeing like the 1 minute video, but it's like, man, that's a lot of work I put into that video. The props. I even had the dog in one of them where the dog is a prop and, all this stuff. Um, but all that stuff takes work. But one thing that I don't want to sacrifice is just time with the people who are important. Obviously, I would need to limit that if I'm trying to generate a business that's operating, at full capacity, earning $25,000 a month. Obviously, I can't be, at every single event, and I can't be doing every single thing. I need to rely on the people, that are in my life to hold it down at home while I'm out earning, right? There's going to be those days where I don't have time to, eat dinner at the dinner table. And that's just something that I'm willing to do. That's something that I think that if I was going to be a legit entrepreneur, there's going to be those days where, hey, maybe there's going to be some nights that I don't make it to dinner. But I don't want to be that dude. I want to make it to dinner. So maybe I'll be the kind of guy who makes it to dinner, be reliable in that sense, and then head back out to do what I got to do. And whatever it is, whatever it is you got to do, right? Not just me, but anybody. You got to do what works for you. Um, you know, uh, spending time at the gym, and but back to this code, I remember I had this neighbor when I was in school, college, and I lived in a small studio apartment in Long Beach. And I had a neighbor. I don't remember what his name was, but a couple of times we weren't friends or anything, but a couple of times we hung out and we played some chess. And this guy whooped my ass in chess. Like I thought I was good at chess, but this dude just whooped me. And he said something to me once. I don't remember what we were talking about, but he said, and this is not like this is obviously, I'm pretty sure I never heard it before, but it's a common phrase. But he said, know thyself and know thyself. And I never really thought much about that phrase. I thought it was an interesting phrase, like know yourself. Um, but it's never rang true for me right now. Like knowing who I am as a person, like what kind of guy am I going to be? What do I value? Um, am I willing to make the changes that are necessary to be the kind of guy that I want to be? For me, I think the answer is yes. Yes, I am willing to be that guy. I'm willing to put in the work to be that dude. And I want that dude to be a man who aligns himself with the principles taught in the Bible, with Jesus. I'm a human being. I'm not perfect. I'm the kind of guy who needs Jesus, who needs that, right? Because I'm not a good guy, you know. And but Jesus is, if I can keep my focus on Jesus and everything that I want to be as a man is aligned with those principles, then I think I'm on the right track. Like taking care of your body. The Bible says that, do you not know that your bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, who you have received from God? You know, you are not your own. You are bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies. And lately, I've been doing really good. I know you guys can tell. Mm. Mm. And I've been doing really good with the food I put in my mouth. I haven't had any sweets or sodas or energy drinks, all that crap. And I feel better for it. And I'm praying every day that I can keep that up. And I've been working out every day and just, even if it's not a lot, just doing something. I've been doing this thing with a group chat that I'm in with a bunch of my buddies who are also believers in Jesus. We don't go to the same churches, but we are friends. So one of them does jujitsu with me. We do jujitsu sometimes. He trains with me at my gym, but we also train at other gyms together. He's a good buddy of mine, and we'll send like we'll check in with each other with our push-ups and things like that. I'm trying to I've been getting that rolling over the last week, to keep each other accountable. Having support networks super important. Um, but I believe very strongly that, we can change ourselves into whoever the heck we want to be, and I think the more we know ourselves, the better we'll be being able to make changes. If we know ourselves and we know who we are, and then we know who we want to be. Like, I know I'm the kind of guy who, can procrastinate or scroll through social media, or I know I'm the kind of guy, that eats bad food, and I got to stop that, you know. And I mean, because I know those things, and because I'm willing to accept the fact that, I'm not in the best health of health, I probably got diabetes or something. I know that I should be, you know, doing things about that, and make changes to my diet and to my workout and all that kind of stuff. Um, but deciding who you want to be is kind of a cool thing, because you could be almost anybody, right? I mean, for me personally, I know I can never be like in the NBA or like, the president of the United States, things like that. But I know I could be the next millionaire investor. Like, I believe that I could be a successful entrepreneur. Like, I believe that with all my heart. I believe that I could have the number one podcast in the world. I mean, maybe not the best podcast in the world. Um, Maybe not, but I could definitely turn this podcast into an income producing asset. I don't know how much subscribers you need to have to be monetized and all that. I think it's like 1,000, and you have to have a certain amount of people watching your show. Pretty much, if you had like 2,000, subscribers, and they all watched, 5 minutes a day or something. I don't know what it is, but I don't even worry about that. I put blinders onto that because I just figure I'm just gonna keep going. I just keep going until I get there, right? Maybe one day I'll get one of those silver plaque things that they give out to YouTube people, right? And I'll have that there, and I'm not even gonna worry about it because this is really fun for me. I don't see this as a job. I just see this as something fun to do, to be able to talk. It's therapeutic. I get to voice my opinions, and like if people don't like what I say, they can, you know, it's fun. I think it's fun. I mean, I've had a couple of people say some dumb stuff, but whatever. That just comes with changing who you are, having thick skin, not letting people get you down, haters. Like, you can't worry about that stuff. If you want to be on the internet and you want to have a podcast, like, you can't worry about getting canceled and all this stuff like that. Like, I mean, as long as you're not saying crazy stuff, too crazy, you know, hopefully no one's gonna want to like dox me and kill me, right? But you can't go through life living in fear. You know what I'm saying? Um, but deciding who you want to be can be fun. For me, I want to be, you know, an entrepreneur. That's who I want to be. I want to be a successful entrepreneur. I want to be the kind of guy who like buys a house, a big house, and like bring my wife to live in with me in that house with the kids, and like be the man. I'm the man. I built this, you know, and that would be a great feeling. And if you've experienced that, you know, tell me about it. I would love to hear about it. But those are like the little things, the dream, that's the dream. It's not just the house. It's not really the dream house. It's the dream is what I put in the house, the wife and kids. And, you know, experiencing taking care of a family like that, and where my wife doesn't have to work at all, and I could just be the man taking care of all the bills, and my wife can just be a loving, devoted, loyal, faithful wife. And, my kids grow up and they're healthy, and they go to college and all that kind of stuff, and just watching all that grow. That's the dream, right? And but you could, maybe you want to be like something else, but deciding who you want to be is can be fun, and it's kind of like joining the school drama class, and you're trying to figure out, you're trying out for the lead role, and you're trying to decide, you know you know who you want to be. And and then once you decide who you want to be, you get some paper and a pen, and then you write the script. It's that simple. You write the script out. And that's what I've been trying to do lately, is just put it down in my book, which I don't have in front of me, but I put it in my book, And I don't care how sloppy it is. That's another technique I'm using to just move the ball forward, which is stop trying to make my book perfect and neat and everything. Just right. Just get it down on paper, whatever it is you're thinking, whatever it is, Bible verses, thoughts on Bible verses, what I'm going to do for my workout, what am I going to eat tomorrow, whatever it is. Work. I even put my work stuff in there, right? Like, oh, I got to write this motion to bifurcate, or I got to write, I got to oppose this demur, and then I'll write the client's name and everything. It has nothing to do with my personal life, but it's work. And I just say, screw it. I'm going to put everything into one book. And then when that book's done, I just buy another book and just keep going. And eventually I'll have all these books with a bunch of writing in it that's for me, and I'll always be able to refer to it and whatnot. Anyway, I hope that I conveyed my message about having a code, like knowing who you are. Probably didn't, because I just kind of did this off the cuff, and I have brain damage, so it's hard for me to like stay on point. But having a code, that's something that I'm working on, making sure that I know exactly who I am and who I'm going to be. And then I'm going to start from that moment, meaning yesterday, start being that person. If I want to be the type of guy who earns $25,000 a month, I need to already see myself as a guy who earns $25,000 a month. I got to be that guy. I can't earn the $25,000 a month and then be the guy. I got to be the guy first. And then the theory is that then the $25,000 a month will come, because I have turned myself into the $25,000 a month guy. And it could be anything. It doesn't have to just apply to business. You could be, I'm going to be that world champion fighter, and I'm going to see myself as the world champion fighter. And then I'm going to execute all the things I wrote down on paper, like getting into the gym at 6 and then have another one at, the afternoon. And I'm going to eat this every single day. And I'm going to do this every single day. Like, we kind of know who we are, or at least we know who we want to be. And oftentimes the thought comes in our minds and then it leaves our minds. That's why it's important to walk around with a pen and paper close to you at all times, because God tends to give us little nuggets every once in a while, and we have epiphanies where if we wrote it down, it would become an internal part of us. We would, oh man, I had that thought. Like, yes, I want this. And if we write it down, it's going to help us. We'll be able to go back and refer to it. We'll remember the thought. How many times have you had a thought and you didn't remember? I can't tell you how many times I had an idea for a podcast and I'm like, dude, this is going to be a great podcast. And then I never wrote anything down, and then I forget everything. So not good. Anyhow, I just rambled for like 45 minutes. So I'm going to end it there. But don't forget to check out tomorrow's show, where we got the Meerkat Rio Renderos coming on the podcast, and he's going to share with us, what happened during his fight, I'm sure. And, hopefully it's a good interview, then you like it. And please don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Tell your friends about me. Tell them that they got to check out the show. Any kind of support you can throw my way, that'd be really cool. Even if you got some constructive criticism, you can leave that in the comment section. Just be nice, And yeah, that's it, man. All right, guys enjoy the rest of your night. Dre B. Rambo, I'm out of here.